The Monaco Grand Prix is over and F1 has its fourth race winner of the year, which is already more than what we saw last year as Charles Leclerc finally won at his home race. But F1 is now moving on to Montreal and back into North America, which means that it is time for my preview and predictions. This is a series where I'll be previewing, and then at the end of the video I'll be giving out my early predictions for the Grand Prix. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now, let's get straight into the video. As usual, I'll be talking about the top 5 teams later on, which is Aston Martin, Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari and Red Bull, so stick around for that. Yes, F1 is heading back to North America, and thankfully after 2 races which didn't see much on-track overtaking, F1 arrives at a circuit which typically does produce plenty of overtakes and on-track excitement, where mistakes can and are punished, with the walls being very close to the chicanes, and we have seen plenty of incidents in the past at Turn 3 and Turn 4 chicane, the hairpin, and most famously the Wall of Champions chicane. The Montreal circuit features plenty of long straights in between these tight chicanes as well, which allows for plenty of overtaking opportunities. Due to the number of straights, expect the teams to reduce the amount of downforce that they run, especially compared to what we saw at Monaco. The tight chicanes will also test the team's abilities in slow speed corners and over the big curbs. This means that once again we could see a close fight at the front, and Red Bull might once again not have it all their own way. With the amount of heavy braking zones on the circuit, the brakes take heavy punishment as well, and this can be an issue, and we have seen plenty of times in the past drivers having to retire due to brakes failures. Montreal is a pretty tricky circuit when it comes to tyre wear, because it's typically very close between a one-stop and a two-stop strategy, with the majority of drivers typically leaning towards a two-stop. But even so, Pirelli will be once again bringing the softest tyres in the range, meaning that the C3 will be the hard tyre, the C4 will be the medium tyre, and the C5 will be the soft compound of tyre. Last year there was a total of 33 pit stops, as there was a mixture of 1 and 2 stops, where the medium and hard tyres were used. It was a mixture of did they want to do 2 sets of mediums and 1 set of hards, or 1 set of medium and 2 sets of hard tyres. This year I anticipate once again it will be a mixture of 1 and 2 stops, leaning more towards a 2-stop strategy, especially if there is a battle at the front of the field. Last year's Canadian Grand Prix had a total of 20 on-track overtakes, and to help with overtaking, the Montreal circuit features 3 DRS zones. One DRS zone is down the pit straight heading into the first corner, the next DRS zone is on the exit of Turn 7 chicane heading into Turn 8, and the final DRS zone is on the exit of the tight hairpin and runs them all the way down the long back straight into the Wall of Champions chicane. With 3 DRS zones, there is plenty of opportunities for overtakes, but there is also plenty of opportunities for DRS trains to form, which we do sometimes see at this circuit. The reason for this is because there is so much DRS that the cars can't really separate, and so we do sometimes see some trains. Last year, qualifying for the Canadian Grand Prix was wet, which does skew the top speed and the lap time somewhat, but even so the pole position lap time was set by Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, and that time was a 1:25.858. During Q2 there was a run on the soft tyres, and during this, the fastest lap that he set, Max Verstappen was able to reach a top speed of 337 km per hour. In the Grand Prix itself, the fastest lap was much faster than pole position, and the fastest lap in the race was set by Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, and that time was a 1:14.481. This lap was set on the final lap of the Grand Prix, as Sergio Perez had a late pit stop for soft tyres. This year, the pole position lap time will definitely be faster if it is dry, and in the race, I think it will be pretty close towards the race fastest lap. That is because, of course, Perez did box right at the end of the race. I just want to say that if you are enjoying the video so far, then would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now though, let's get back to the video and let's talk about the top 5 teams, starting with Aston Martin. For Aston Martin, the Monaco Grand Prix was a pointless race, as Fernando Alonso once again finished out of the points with a P11 finish, and Lance Stroll finished in 14th place after clipping the wall and suffering a puncture, throwing away any small opportunity that he had of scoring any points. It was a very difficult race for Aston Martin, as was Imola, and the team are continuing to move backwards towards the midfield. At Montreal though, I think there is an opportunity for them to get back to the points and finish ahead of VCARB. The circuit should be better for them. There is plenty of straights for the Aston Martin team to maximise their strength, which has been straight line speed performance so far this year. Alonso will be looking to hustle the car around this circuit and get into Q3, and I think he might just do that, which will set him up nicely for the Grand Prix. For Mercedes, the race in Monaco was a bit of a strategical blunder of a race. The team failed to inform Lewis Hamilton that he needed to push on his outlap in order to undercut Verstappen. There was the obvious strategy of Russell backing up Verstappen and Hamilton pushing. However, that didn't happen and Verstappen ended up coming out ahead of Hamilton. It was not for the major points, but it did show how Mercedes have moved backwards, not just in terms of performance, but also operationally. There is an argument to be made that Hamilton should have known to push given his experience, but Mercedes didn't help the situation. And going into Montreal, I have a feeling that it will be another race where Mercedes are on an island of one. Mercedes are definitely ahead of Aston Martin, and they've pulled away from them with recent upgrades, but they are still a long way away from the top 3 teams. And because of that, I feel like in Canada it will be another race where they will finish at a maximum of P6. For McLaren, the Monaco Grand Prix showed that they have finally overcame the issues in slow speed corners, as Oscar Piastri put the car on the front row, and Lando Norris put the car in 4th place, and really both McLarens would have been on the podium if not for the red flag period. With this in mind, McLaren should now be suited to pretty much all the circuits, and this means that McLaren might finally be able to score some points for the first time since 2014 at Montreal. I expect that we should once again see McLaren fighting for pole position, and I do see them fighting for podium places. Oscar Piastri came so close to pole position in Monaco. He suffered damage early on in the race with the incident with Carlos Sainz. At any other circuit, he wouldn't have finished in 2nd place, but he did so because it was Monaco. In Montreal, I can see him once again being very strong in qualifying. However, I do still worry somewhat about his race pace as the stints wear on. Teammate Norris has not been as strong in qualifying, but as stints go on during the race, he does typically get a lot stronger versus Piastri, and this is going to create an interesting dynamic in Montreal if they are together on track. Against Ferrari this weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if one of the McLarens beats both of the Ferraris, but I can also see Ferrari taking the fight to McLaren. For Ferrari, Charles Leclerc finally broke the Monaco Grand Prix curse with victory, and he won his first race since 2022, as he is looking very comfortable with the new upgrades. Teammate Sainz has struggled a little bit more recently, and I can see that in Canada, Leclerc will be very strong once again, as he is stronger in the slow speed corners currently. Both Imola and at Monaco, he has been in very strong form, whereas Sainz has looked somewhat weaker. Ferrari has been strong in slow speed corners as well for a while, and I can see them in the hunt for pole position with Charles Leclerc. The lack of tyre wear for Ferrari as well should help them in the Grand Prix, as if any team can get away with a one stop in the top 3 teams, then I anticipate that it will be Ferrari, which could very much help them in the race. And finally, for Red Bull, Monaco was the toughest race of the year for them as a team, as Sergio Perez went out in Q1 and then he was wiped out at the beginning of the race, and teammate Max Verstappen was stuck behind George Russell for pretty much the entire race. Going into Canada, I expect that Verstappen will bounce back somewhat, but I do think he will have a fight on his hands, as Red Bull is struggling a little bit more over the curbs and through slow speed corners and chicanes. Teammate Sergio Perez I feel like will struggle more, and I can see him getting eliminated in Q2 during qualifying. He will likely recover to points in the race, but I can only see it being a maximum of a P6 finish for Checo Perez. So with that in mind then, what are my early predictions for the Canadian Grand Prix? Well, I think the top midfield team and midfield driver will be Yuki Tsunoda in the VCARB, as he is in top form at the moment, and VCARB are definitely the strongest midfield team. But what about the top 5 and the race? Well, I think that for qualifying and pole position, it will once again be Charles Leclerc on pole position, as I do think he will make it 2 poles in a row. But what about the race itself and the top 5? Well, for P5, I am going to go for Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari to be P5. P4 will be Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. P3 will be Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. P2 will be Lando Norris in the McLaren. And yes, I think he's going to make it back-to-back victories. And I think Charles Leclerc is going to win the Canadian Grand Prix. Maybe that's my Ferrari bias coming out a little bit, but that is what I think. The question is though, what do you guys think will happen? In the comment section down below, let me know. And as always, comment, leave a like, and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching.